Welcome to another lesson from the IELTS Listening Section, and today this video is going to be about how to handle table completion type questions in the IELTS exam in the listening section. So when it comes to table completion questions, what you're asked to do is to fill in the blanks, fill in the gaps with the exact words that you hear in the recording. So you're filling in the gaps, and just right off the bat, let me give you a little tip about spelling, because you're going to be hearing these words, maybe some of them for the first time, some that you may not be really familiar with. Hopefully there will be some that you have no problem with and that you've heard many times before and that you're very clear on how to spell them. But if you should hear a word and you know it's the correct word for that gap, and maybe you're hesitating about the spelling or having questions about how to spell it, the best course of action is to write it in and spell it any way you can for the moment. Because the main thing is you want to get that answer filled in. If it's not spelled perfectly, that's an issue, because you won't get a mark if it's not spelled correctly. But for the time being, if you're not sure of the spelling, write it in anyways, because at the end of the listening section, after you've done your 40 questions in 30 minutes, you have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. And 10 minutes is plenty of time to accomplish this task. But it's during this time when you're transferring your answers that you can work on your spelling and put a little extra thought into your spelling and check your spelling. So when it comes to checking the spelling of words, if you're not sure of a word and how to spell it, write it in anyways, the best way you can, so that when you're transferring your answers later on, this is where you can double check your spelling and make any changes to the spelling that you want. So let's get started on the strategy for table completion. As usual, the first thing you want to do is read and listen to the instructions. And this is very important because in the listening section, you do have two ways to make sure that you're achieving the task that you're asked to accomplish. So the first thing is you read the instructions and underline them. And in this case, it says no more than 3 words and a number. So that means that you can write 2 words and a number, or 3 words, 2 words and 2 numbers. But just make sure you don't go over 3 words and a number. In most cases, 1 word or even 2 words will be the usual answer. But just be aware and underline it so you're not getting halfway through the recording and then second guessing yourself. Am I allowed to use 2 words or 3? How many numbers can I write in? You don't want to have any of that second guessing or second thoughts as you're listening to the recording. And just by underlining it, you'll reinforce it and make sure that you know you've paid attention to the instructions and the task that you have to achieve. And then you also have the opportunity to listen to the instructions. And in this case, you'll want to make a little note, because when you listen to the instructions, you're listening for the context and the topic of the recording. And this is so important too, so that the more information you have about the recording before you start listening, the more effective you'll be able to answer the questions. So make a little note. And in this case, we know that this is a radio broadcast, and it's a broadcast about the Arts Center. And one little thing to note with table completion questions, all the answers come in order. And when you're listening for the answers in a table, the table will come in order. So for example, it will start with Monday and Tuesday in the top left-hand corner, it'll go across that line. Then it will talk about Wednesday, and then it will talk about Saturday and Sunday. So this is a good thing just to be aware of as you look at the table and to prepare yourself for what you're about to listen to, that this is the order that the questions come in. And don't hesitate to use the other things, the other information you're given as to follow along. So if you're listening for question number 17, and then all of a sudden you notice that they're talking about Wednesday, well, unfortunately, this means that you missed the answer to number 17. But don't panic. Don't keep trying to think of what it could be. Don't second guess it. Don't dwell on it. Keep moving forward and make sure you're prepared to answer number 18. Because if you're panicking and worried about the question that you missed, there's a good chance that you'll also miss the next question. And this is where things begin to pile up and you won't get the score you need. The idea in the listening section is to get as many correct answers as possible out of the 40 possibilities. So if you miss one, it's not a reason to panic. It doesn't mean you won't get the score. It doesn't mean that you've blown the whole test. Just make sure you keep moving forward and get the next one correct. And so that's a very important thing to realize, and maybe one of the best tips I can give you for the listening section is to always keep moving forward. Now, another thing that you want to do as you're preparing to listen, as well as reading the instructions that are in your notebook, you want to underline any titles or headings that you see. And this is true for all listening types, but it's especially important for table completion, because we have 5 headings in this question: day, time, event, venue, and ticket price. And this is very helpful because if I look, for example, in question number 17 again, I know that I'm listening for a venue. Number 18, I'm listening for an event. Number 19, I'm listening for a cost. And number 20, I'm listening for another event again. So when it comes to table completion questions, underlining the headings of each column in the table is very important. And if you wanted to, you could also underline the headings for each row. For example, Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. With practice, as you practice more table completion questions, as you practice other listening questions, you will discover the best things to mark and underline to help you predict the answers that you need to listen for when it comes to listening questions. So once you've underlined the title and the headings, then you can begin to predict the type of answers you're going to hear. And again, this is simply using the headings that you've already underlined, and you can make a note beside each question as you're using the time you're given some time to look at the answers before the recording begins. And in this time, you can underline and make your notes. So when it comes to predicting, maybe beside number 17, I'm going to want to write a room or facility. And this is just another thing to realize, is room and facility is a synonym for venue. But by writing in room or facility, I know that I'm listening for the name of a room or the name of a place. I know that for number 18, I'm listening for the name of a film. Now, earlier on, I gave you a little bit of advice about spelling, But let me just tell you another tip about spelling, and it's when it comes to proper names. In this case, you'll be given the name of a film. And in other listening questions, you may be given the name of a place or a town or a city, maybe the name of a person, or even the name of a website. Whenever you're given a proper name, it will always be spelt for you. So when you know that you're going to be writing in the name of a film, for example, be ready to listen for them to spell it for you. And that way, you won't have to worry about making a spelling mistake. Just be prepared to listen for the spelling. In number 19, I know that I'm listening for a price, but I'm going to put price in pounds. Now, how do I know it's going to be a price in pounds? The reason I know this is because I know the context of the recording, because back in the first step that I mentioned to you, I listened to the instructions, I listened for the context of the recording, and I know that this recording is taking place in the UK, and this is where they use pounds. So if I know that, I'm just going to be put in price in pounds. I'm not listening for a dollar amount, for example. I'm listening for price in pounds. So just another reason, be very careful to listen to the instructions and make sure you understand the context of the recording that you're going to listen to. And then in number 20, I know that it's going to be the title of an exhibition. And again, this is going to be a proper name. And so unless it's a common name, like for example, if they said automobile exhibition, well, then they're not going to spell it for me. But if the exhibition has a proper name, the name of a person, or it's named after a place, they will spell it for you. And so once you've done all this, you're finally ready to answer the questions and get the score you need in this section of the listening test. So if you want to practice this set of questions, the notes and answers, the answers and the recording, are in the notes, and I want to wish you all the best as you continue to prepare for the IELTS exam.